Hello everybody, Jet here, and welcome to our next Dev Diary for Victoria Free, Dev Diary 1 Pops, where, well, it's our first big full Dev Diary. Obviously Vivision was quite interested, and we're gonna get straight into this, start reading, have a look, and I will obviously give you opinions and look at all of screenshots as we go through. So anyway, hello everyone, I'm Mikhail, obviously I'm Jet, that's the lead dev, Victoria Free's lead game designer. And oh boy, does that feel good to finally be able to say that out loud. Today, I have the pleasure to reveal some details about that one feature everybody thinks about when they hear Victoria. The Pops. Never played Victoria, but I've heard everybody talking about Pops this, Pops that, Pops the other. But quite a few games do have Pops, but it all started with the Vicky games. Pops were introduced in the very first Victoria game to represent the country's population. Pop mechanics have since snuck into other Paradox titles like Stellaris and Imperator, but this in-depth population simulation is what Victoria is about, and we're going to bring you a system with more depth than ever before. And that sounds really good, but again, it sounds really good with a caveat on they need to make it accessible and usable. And I would say even in Imperator, which sounds like it's going to be far less in depth than this, there are some issues with that. But if they're doing that as one of the sort of tenets of the game from the start, I have faith that they can do it very well. But we'll wait and see, and we see some cool stuff later. In Victoria Free, Pops are the country's engine. They work in the industries, they pay the taxes, they operate the government institutions, and they fight the wars. They're born, they die, they change occupation, they migrate, and they organise, get angry, and start revolutions. Ooh. Every pop is visualised so you can see which demographic sports the best moustache. Best moustache? Mine's terrible. Note, pop portraits are very much a work in progress. So this is an early one here. Oh, I can't open this one. I can open this screenshot, but you can see he's got an awesome little tash there. This looks very like the like it's using the DNA system from Crusader Kings 3, which would be absolutely silly if they weren't using. I'm sorry, it's making me play with my terrible tash, which I need to cut off. But yeah, so obviously a French Catholic clergyman, so you can see he's wearing the clergy thing. He's got the awesome moustache, and he is Catholic. There you go. Early footage, of course, guys. You, the player, might be in charge of the country, but you're not in charge of the Pops, and can't manipulate them directly. Yet everything you do in the country affects them, and they in turn react to what they perceive as their own best interests. A large part of your game will consist of trying to sate your population's appetites for material goods or political reform. But most actions you will take aren't for the benefit of every pop in your nation, and by making life better for one part of the population, you may inadvertently upset other demographics. Which is understandable, but that's the way it is. You've only got a certain amount of money to put around, so you put it somewhere others aren't going to like it. Even if it's better for them in the long run, they might not like it, but it might slowly cause drift with your pops. And it sounds like it's going to be a system you can really manipulate, so while you can't do them purposefully, you can sort of slowly pull pops from one place to the other, which is quite cool. The most important aspect of pops are their professions, which reflects the type of jobs it carries out in the building where they work. A pop's profession determines its social class and affects its wages, political strength, and other professions it might qualify for, and particularly which political interest groups it's prone to supporting, which you'll hear lots more about in future Dev Diaries. I know they're also looking and talking about political parties, which is something they've not meant. It's something they're thinking about at the moment because a lot of people mentioned it. Some of the pop professions you will encounter in Vicky Free are aristocrats, capitalists, bureaucrats, officers, shopkeepers, machinists, labourers, and peasants. Investing in industries that provide job opportunities for these kind of professions you want to encourage in your country is key to the social building gameplay of Victoria. For the kind of profession, sorry. So yeah, so basically if you're building correct industries, you're getting things to say you're Prussia, and you've got a very martial focus, and, you know, a very, very martial focus and a very big military. You can have more officers, and I mean, in Prussia, in real life, they had kind of a second class. So if you were serving in the military, you were above. Basically, there was an aristocrat and a military aristocrat, or a peasant and a military peasant, and the military one was always above the non-military one in Prussia, for example, being an example of this sort of thing I think they're hinting at here. So you could push things to be a very martial society, which will obviously mean that you want to follow martial things more, which isn't necessarily good, because it means if you don't go to war, you could be stuffed and get revolutions and things, or you could be more an industrious, you know. So depending on where you go, it's going to really impact on what you're building. People naturally fill those niches. That's what I think it's saying anyway. Every variation of profession, culture, religion and workforce in the world gets its own unique pop at any given time. These result in many tens of thousands of pop in the world, working, migrating, procreating and agitating. So every combination is different, and here we've got one. So here we have this, let's look, he is in Diyarbakir. He is a Turkish Sunni aristocrat who is from subsistence farms, who lives on subsistence farms. He also has another excellent moustache. Obviously you can go in more here. We are going to have a scroll over, unsurprisingly, apparently. I think that's going to be how many of these there are. And the workforce. So that's how many of them are. That's how many of them are in the workforce. And that's how many of them are dependents. But this is only the Turkish Sunni subsistence farmers, I believe, aristocrats. So there'll be different types of aristocrats as well. Wealthy landowners, old money with old connections. As owners of farms and plantations, they contribute to some of their profits to the investment pool. Their political interests are represented as the landowners. So obviously that's how much money they make as well, and also how much money I can tax. Aristocrats are part of the upper class, so there's obviously different groups within all the pop types, so which kind of makes sense. In the opera tempo, there are populations. So this is total aristocrats. This is the breakdown. This is the subsistence farming Sunni Turkish aristocrats. There are 7.97k, and it's going up. But in total aristocrats in Turkey, there are 244,000 with 1.55 million political strength. And I imagine they are a fairly hefty political group. But again, these guys are different, and these guys will have potentially have different interests and drives than other aristocrats. While they'll all have some things in common, because these guys are subsistence farmers, they'll obviously want you to... How are you going to be a subsistence farmer and an aristocrat is a bit weird, but they'll potentially want different things. So because they're Sunni, they'll want you to push Sunni things. Because their culture's Turkish, obviously they'll want the primacy of Turkish, probably. Anything to do with farms, they'll probably like or dislike, have more interest in. And aristocrats tend to support local governors, armed forces, and Sunni madrasas. And they have 2.2% in other interest groups. Only pops with adequate wealth can become aristocrats. Potential increases with greater wealth and, to a lesser degree, literacy. So educating your population will push them up through the trees. Pops whose culture faces discrimination take much longer. Officers and bureaucrats have a particularly easy time becoming aristocrats. I guess you could be up from a different upper class, because becoming an officer was something you generally have needed to be upper class, or certainly middle class for in most of these places. Okay. For people that make up... So let's get on. For people that make upper pop are distinguished into workforce and dependents. We've seen that on here. Members of the workforce keep the buildings in the game operational and collect a wage from them in return. Those who cannot aren't permitted to be officially employed are considered or aren't allowed. Those who cannot or aren't permitted to be officially employed are considered dependents. They collect only a small income from odd jobs and government programs. So obviously that's quite a lot of dependence. But that was the sort of era it was in. Lots of kids, and obviously women weren't necessarily allowed to work back then. Law, which was coming to here. Laws affect who is included in each category. At the game start, most countries do not accept women working and collecting a wage outside the home, but by reforming laws governing the rights of women and more dependent pops, By reforming the laws governing the rights of women, more dependent pops will enter the workforce over time. Sorry about that. By abolishing child labour and the amount of income dependents bring home will decrease, but it will make it easier to educate your populace, which means that while it will decrease, you'll have more people who are more educated and able to earn more, increasing the overall literacy. After a bloody war, many dependents of soldiers may be left without sufficient income. You may decide to institute pensions to help your population recover, which is good. It keeps them going, but it keeps them happy, but it also costs money, of course. In short, nothing in your country runs without pops, and everything about your country affects these pops, who in turn provide new opportunities and challenges during your tumultuous journey through the Victorian era and beyond. Oh, I have oh so much more to say, but that's it for this week. You will hear from us in future Dev Diaries, which look to be Thursdays. Next week, Martin will return explaining something quite central to get the game. Capacities. Interesting. I'm not going to pretend I have a clue what it is. So, if you give more rights to women, will they show up in visual representations? We're experimenting with a few things. Stay tuned. This is just dev things. There are 2 figures on the pops. I've kind of mentioned that. That's this particular individual pop and the total aristocrats. Are there still summary screens? Yes, absolutely, to visualize pops as an aggregate. So you're not going to have to individually scroll for every pop, but you'll be able to see what the entire group is doing. Yeah, that's Dev Diaries on Thursday, and pops will be very, very moddable. Yeah. Individual within pops make their own. So pops, while they're within a group, aren't necessarily all the same. So you could have an aristocrat who was part of a labour lobby, for example. Unlikely, but could happen. But yeah, this all looks really interesting. It's a really interesting way of breaking it all down and making everybody that much more interesting. I think it's going to be quite cool. Again, it all depends on how you access it and how they break it down. But those screens to visualize it as in groups and things in their overall likes, I think is the key thing there, and that needs to be done well so you can work out how you're modifying and affecting your populations and your pops. And yeah, it looks cool, guys. Let me know what you all think down below in the description as well. Anything you think I've missed, anything you think is particularly interesting. This is also a new format, guys, so please let me know if there's anything you think I should be doing differently, or just anything you want me to talk about, guys. Anything you think I should be doing differently, let me know. And of course, if you have enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe. I'll be doing these as quickly as I can whenever they come out. And yeah, other than that, as always, a massive thank you to my channel members and Patreons. You really do help, and Twitch subscribers. All linked down below in the description. And thank you to everybody for watching. Cheers, guys.